Welcome to this visual analysis. Look, if you've ever opened up a social media app looking for fitness advice, you know exactly how overwhelming it can be, right? You instantly get bombarded with hundreds of different influencers, all telling you completely contradicting things. It makes the whole process feel like absolute chaos. But today, we're going to completely cut through all that noise. We're going to demystify weight loss using a fantastic source that breaks everything down into clear, logical, and visually digestible pieces. I promise you, losing fat is actually simple. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it's easy, but the underlying concepts are incredibly simple. So let's figure this out together.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because this is probably the biggest question out there, and honestly, it's the exact trap that leads so many of us astray from day one. Say someone wants a flat stomach. What do? They do 1,000 crunches. Or they want thinner thighs, so they do endless squats. But you have to ask yourself, does that actually work? Can you tell your body exactly where to burn fat from?
Well, the reality is a hard no. Doing crunches is not going to specifically burn belly fat. Squats are definitely not going to magically melt fat off your thighs. The truth is, when you lose fat, you lose it generally across your entire body. And the places where your body chooses to store and burn that fat, that is heavily dictated by your genetics. It's just how we're wired. For instance, men typically store more fat in the abdomen, while women often store it in the thighs or hips. And here's the tricky part. When you actually start losing fat, the very first places it disappears from are usually your face, your arms, or your chest, places where you might not even notice it at first.
So, to make sense of all this, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to tackle the great myth, look at the caloric deficit, explain how to burn calories and how to consume them, and finally wrap up with simplicity and patience.
Starting with Section 1, the great myth and why social media information totally confuses us.
When you have hundreds of influencers pushing extreme diets and crazy workout routines, a process that is actually scientifically simple suddenly feels like climbing Mount Everest. The great myth is that fat loss has to be complicated. It absolutely doesn't. But we have to understand this massive mental hurdle. Because our bodies burn fat generally, like we said, often starting with the face or arms, we tend to look in the mirror, check our belly, and see absolutely no change. And what's the immediate thought? I'm failing, this isn't working. This is exactly where most people throw in the towel. They fall for the myth that their hard work isn't paying off just because that specific localized fat hasn't vanished in week 1. But listen, you aren't failing. The process is working invisibly in the background. You just have to keep pushing forward.
Moving on to Section 2, the caloric deficit. This is the only absolute rule you need to know.
Before we can even talk about a deficit, we have to define your baseline. So, what are maintenance calories? It's simply the amount of energy your body uses just to exist. We're talking about your breathing, your organs functioning, your brain working. Think of food as your energy input and your daily living as your energy output. It's really just math. If you want to lose weight, your output simply has to be greater than your input.
And that leads us straight to the caloric deficit itself. To lose fat safely and, more importantly, sustainably, you should aim to consume between 15% and 20% fewer calories than your daily maintenance baseline. That specific percentage is the sweet spot. It guarantees you're taking in less energy than you're using, which forces your body to burn stored fat. But it isn't so drastic that you starve yourself or absolutely crash your metabolism.
But hold on, because there's a massive warning from our source material here. Obsessing over your smartwatch's calorie counter or meticulously weighing every single gram of food on a kitchen scale, that is going to ruin your mental health. It turns a really positive health journey into an anxiety-inducing math test, and that actually hinders long-term success. So what's the shortcut? Honestly, just use AI. You can paste your weight, height, and general daily activity level right into ChatGPT, ask for your maintenance calories, and boom, you've got a quick, simple baseline without the unhealthy obsession.
Okay, Section 3, how to burn calories. This is without a doubt fitness's biggest misunderstanding.
Now, what's really interesting here is how our bodies actually use energy. Prepare to have your mind blown a little bit. Notice that a massive 70% of the calories you burn every single day go toward vital functions, just keeping your organs running while you breathe and sleep. Another 20% comes from your basic daily activity, like walking around your house or doing your job. Physical exercise, that punishing hour on the treadmill, that only makes up about 10% of your daily calorie burn. Think about that. If your maintenance is 3,000 calories and you burn 600 lifting weights or doing cardio, doing even more crazy exhaustive cardio is barely going to move the needle. It's just not going to speed up fat loss in a safe way.
In fact, doing excessive cardio will completely drain your daily energy. You're going to feel exhausted, your mood will absolutely tank, and you won't perform well at work or at home. Instead, the secret is to simply increase your daily activity. If you work a desk job, just take the stairs instead of the elevator. Walk to the gym instead of driving. These tiny, simple habit changes boost your calorie burn without draining your vital energy. You should definitely still do your standard weights and moderate cardio, but please don't try to outrun a bad diet with 3 hours on a treadmill.
Which brings us to Section 4, how to consume calories. Let's break down proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Let's walk through this systematically. First up, proteins. Their main job is to maintain your muscle. The general rule, aim for 1.6 to 2 grams per kilogram of your body weight. So, if you weigh 80 kilos, you're looking at about 150 grams of protein a day. And it's super easy to get that. Maybe some eggs for breakfast, a chicken breast for lunch, a protein shake as a snack, and some tuna for dinner. Next, we have carbohydrates, which are your main energy source. And finally, fats, which are absolutely vital for your organs to even function.
Let's look a bit closer at carbohydrates. A lot of diets out there will tell you to just cut carbs entirely. That is a huge mistake. Carbs literally give you the energy you need to live. However, the source does point out that white carbohydrates, like white rice, white flour, and white bread, have a really high glycemic index. That means they release sugar into your blood very quickly, so you don't stay full for very long. And let me tell you, hunger is the absolute enemy of a caloric deficit. Simply swapping these out for whole grain alternatives will keep you satiated way longer. Though, as the author notes, even white rice is perfectly fine if you plan it intelligently into your day.
And then we have fats. We have got to completely erase the fear of the word fat. Eating dietary fat does not instantly translate to body fat. In fact, 20 to 30% of your diet must come from good fats. We're talking olive oil, avocados, and nuts. Your vital organs literally require them to survive. What you need to avoid are the bad fats, and we all know what these are, right? Ultra-processed foods, deep-fried items, and sugary pastries. You don't have to overthink this, just stick to the natural stuff.
Finally, Section 5, simplicity and patience, the journey toward consistency.
There's a quote from the source that hits the nail on the head. If you overcomplicate things and obsess over wanting to go faster, you will end up failing your goal. This is incredibly true. Trying to hack the system, stressing over every single calorie, doing hours of cardio, and practically starving yourself, that excess of information and that frantic rush for immediate results is going to ruin all of your progress. Real, sustainable weight loss is a slow, steady learning process. So let's rapidly summarize our key takeaways here. Keep things incredibly simple for the long term. Maintain a balanced routine of lifting weights and moderate cardio. Foster a generally active lifestyle by building small daily movement habits. Never push yourself into excessive routines that just burn out your mental health. And finally, regulate your diet but never, ever cut your vital energy. Your food is the fuel your body actually needs to function, to survive, and to burn that fat efficiently.
Which leaves us with this final thought. Are you ready to stop overcomplicating things, protect your mental health, and start being consistent today? The blueprint is right here. Drop the anxiety-inducing fitness myths, trust in the slow and steady process, and start implementing these simple, sustainable steps right now. You've got the knowledge. The next step is simply to begin. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you on the next one.